Hey, today's going to be a little bit different type of message and all. If you got the email, and the reason for that is today all we're going to be doing is we're just going to be talking about this upcoming year. Later, as we go through this, you're going to see why, because we're going to be trying out a little something different this year, and so I need you all on board with this, because you all play an active role in this as active members of this church and people who attend here regularly, or consider this your church home. So you'll see where that goes when we get there. Now, the one thing I often remind us as people here at this church and as followers of Jesus Christ is God did not just save you so you could say you're going to heaven, okay? On top of being able to say you get to go to heaven because your sins are forgiven and you're redeemed through Christ, the other aspect of it is this, is that God saved us so we can do his work in the time that we have here on this planet until we're gone. That we actually have a mission, we have a purpose, and that is to spread the good news of the kingdom of God in this world while we are here and show people a different way of life that is much more rewarding because you're actually doing it with your Creator. Likewise, this church and the church itself is much more than just a 20-minute sermon on Sunday mornings and a worship set and coming to worship service on Sundays. A lot of churches, that is what church is just coming to this service, and then you feel like I'm part of that church and this is what we do and that's what church is. But in reality, the church was meant to be something much, much bigger than that. And if you think that church is simply this time that we spend here, then you have missed out on what God truly wanted you to experience through his church. That there is so much more there that he wants you to be a part of, and he wants you to see your life change through all the other aspects of the church that God lays out for us. So today what we're going to do is this. I'm just going to walk through the biblical reasons we see the church exist and kind of how that plays out here at Christview, and what your role is in that ministry, within that work of this church, Christview. If you consider this to be your home church or whatever it is, you know we're not like formal on membership and stuff like that, but the way I see it is, if you attend here regularly, this is your church, okay? This is your part of the kingdom of God that you actually participate in, and you have some stake in this, the ministry that we do here. So we're going to walk through what are the different aspects of the church and kind of how that plays out here at this church, Christview. So the first thing is this, is when you study the scriptures, you see that the church was meant to be a unique community, okay? And what I mean by that is, you have all these scriptures on your program there, but Chuck, throw them up here. Here's some of the things we see in the scriptures that make the community and this, what happens here in this group that we're a part of, different than every other place in the world. And it is this. It should be something that's described by love and honor for each other. That we love each other, we try to honor each other. It's a part of who we are. It should be people that we would consider good-natured people, not perfect people, but good-natured, meaning we're trying to do right. We're trying to do good. But we all have to understand we're all flawed people with our own little issues, except for me, obviously, because I'm the pastor. So I'm the one perfect one here. But the rest of you have flaws. And so those come out at times. But we are to be good-natured people, okay? And that should be our heart. We should be a place that's kind and forgiving, that we are kind towards each other, we're forgiving towards each other, we don't hold stuff against each other, we try to move on from things and forgive each other and move on in our relationships. It should be a place that's encouraging, where we actually encourage each other and we motivate each other, as you see there, motivate each other to do good works, to be the people God has called us to be. And it should be a place that you feel good coming out of, that these people have my back and these people want the best for me, okay? And the last one is this we see in the scriptures, it should be diverse, meaning the society that you live in, inside the church, it should look like that because you should be winning people from every segment of the society that you're in. And so the church body should be diverse, okay? Now, if all those things were true, you would have a community that looks different than any other community you could be part of in this world. Because that is a godly community. That's what the church was established to be, is to promote that type of an environment that you can be a part of as a follower of Jesus Christ. You get to kind of be adopted into this family, and you get to live in this family that functions this way until you leave this place, and then you get to go to heaven where everything is perfect, okay? Now, the way we try to promote that here at Christview, we have several ways we try to do that. Number one is this, we promote and police a healthy atmosphere. What I mean by that is this, those things we just saw that are biblical, those are things you hear us preach about regularly, they're things that you hear us talk about regularly, and when I say police, what I mean by that is this: when the leadership sees that start to go astray, we try to step in and we try to neutralize that and fix that up and get it back to where God wanted it to be. So if we see conflict in the church between people, typically when we hear that, we're going to go out and we're going to try to fix that conflict and get people back into unity. Okay? When we hear sinful things happening in the church that are going to lead to effects on the church and hurt other people, we're going to try to intervene and go, hey, this isn't good, this isn't proper for God's people, we need to get back to here. Okay? So we're trying to promote and police that environment as a church. Other things we try to do, we have our weekly service. So obviously in our weekly service, when you do show up here, those characteristics we just have up there should describe who we are. And when we're here together, we walk away and we feel like, yes, that was the community I was a part of. Sadly, and we've all been in this, we know what it's like to go to churches where those things don't describe the church. And it becomes miserable. How many of you have ever been in a miserable church environment before? When you go, and this is how the miserable church environment works. You're kind of hesitant when you're going because you're like, I don't know what I'm going to have to deal with today. And when you leave, it's kind of like, oh, thank goodness I'm out of there today because I'm so tired of listening to people and talking to people about that stuff. Okay? We don't want that. That's not what it's supposed to be. So our Sunday services, you should leave with those character traits we saw. You should be like, that's my church. That's how we function. Another thing we do, and we're doing today, one of them that we try to promote this and make this be the environment we have, is our lunches. And so we'll have those, and I've got this here. This is out on the foyer table. Get one of these today. If you haven't got one yet, it gives you all the outline, the main events of the year. But one of the things we do is these CC lunches. As Christian said, they're very easy. All we do is we just pick a restaurant, we all go over, you just buy your own meal, and we hang out together. And it's outside this environment. It puts us out there in our community. One of the things you don't all know I do, after we're done eating, I go tip all the staff because I know we cause them stress when we come in because there's so many of us. So I give them a tip, and they know who we are now when we come to these restaurants that we're Christview because they enjoy that we give them a tip and everything, and we treat them well when we're there. Okay? So that's one of the ways we try to get out in the community, but also we just have a good time. So today at Charlie's Chicken, you get some good food, you hang out, you have a good time, you leave when you leave, and we hang out and just have a good time together. That promotes that atmosphere we're looking for. 3 other events we do this. Our CCC family events, we have our Thanksgiving night. If you haven't been to that before, I would encourage you to try to make time to come to that. We do a big Thanksgiving dinner here. We get catered in Thanksgiving food, and then we do trivia together in here and just have a good time. So you have that. You have the family Christmas, and that is what most churches do for a Christmas Eve service. We always try to do it before Christmas Eve because we found in the past on Christmas Eve, most of us have family stuff to go to. So we would come in, try to get their service as fast as we can. Everybody books it out the door, and within like 7 minutes of the service being over, everyone's gone because people are going to places on Christmas Eve. So we started doing CCC Family Christmas, where we just come in on the week before Christmas or the Saturday, what is it, Saturday? The Sunday before whatever Christmas is, so we can just have an enjoyable time. So we come, we hang out, we do our Christmas Eve service, candlelight service, and then we hang out with fellowship with cookies and drinks and stuff like that, and we just have a good evening together. One more we do is in the spring. We do a spring one. It used to be with Valentine's, but now we just do a spring one, but it's just like the Thanksgiving dinner. We cater in food, and we do trivia together just to have a good evening together, and to promote that unity of the church and just the fellowship of the church. Another thing we do, bunco nights. How many of you have been out to a bunco night? Bunco nights, if you haven't been to them, they're fun. If you don't know what bunco is, it's a brain-dead game, totally by luck. And so you have to have no skill. Sorry, Chrissy, I hate to tell you this now. Or where's Gary? Gary's in here somewhere. Gary always wins somehow. It's a game of luck, and it's a brain dead, and somehow Gary wins almost every time something in that game. So I don't know what that says, but he does win. But we are going to be doing that. We have 3 of those during the year. There's an ice cream one where we make homemade ice cream, bring it in. We have a chili night where we do chili. People bring chili and bring it in. And the last one we're going to add this year is a dessert night. I think Christy mentioned this, or something like a snack night, dessert night, where people just bring in desserts and snacks, and we just use those. But those are an hour and a half long. Come in, eat some good food, have ice cream, chili, and then we play bunco together. And it's an easy way to get to know new people because you're switching tables constantly. It's like speed dating, but you're rolling dice. Okay? That's the best way I can describe it. Here's the last thing as we talk about diversity. One of my things always has been I would love to see a church that's actually looks like our community and our neighborhood. One of the things that is going the most likely be happening soon, I don't have all the details because we have to meet as a leadership this week to start talking all this through. I've been meeting with our Hispanic group that meets here at the church several times this summer, and been working with them for the last couple of years, kind of planting this of where we want to go. They are at a point, they came to me beginning of this week or end of last week, and they actually want to just blend into our church and become part of our church and just be part of us, and not be an independent group or anything, but actually just be part of us, while still having a Hispanic service because half their people only speak Spanish, but they want to be part of Christview and just be part of us. How that all works out, we're going to figure that out as a leadership, and we'll give you details down the road here. But just wanted you to know that's one of those baby steps since we live in a community that's almost 65% Hispanic. That's a big thing for us to have the Hispanic group just go, we want to be Christview and be part of you. Theologically, they are exact same as us, which is odd to find. So they are on the same page we are on all biblical issues. And so it should be a fairly smooth transition with some of that, of how we figure that out, and we'll give you details as that comes. Okay? The second purpose we see in the church is this. It was meant to be a place that matured the believer. So if you are a follower of Christ or you're someone that just accepted Christ, the church should be a place where if you're a part of it, you grow. So you get a better understanding of your faith, what it means to be a follower of Jesus Christ. And so that is another emphasis and a purpose of the church that God designed it to achieve. Some of the ways we promote that, we have our women's Bible study. So women, if you're in here and you don't work or whatever, there's the women's Bible study on Wednesday mornings at 9:30 that they lead, and they just have a good time. So it's partial fellowship, and it's partial teaching, and it's partial praying together, where they share needs and something and pray for each other. But there was, 16 or 17 this week, and there's usually probably about 25 or so involved in that rotate through right now. So if you're interested, that's one way. Two, you have Sunday school hour. Some of you don't come to that, but that's at 10 a.m. We do different topics all the time. Right now, what we started is we're doing all the controversial topics that society doesn't want to talk about, and we're doing it in class together, where we can actually have dialogue and actually take some time to flesh things out. So we're doing that in class right now. So it's all the sensitive topics you're not supposed to ever talk about, we're talking about. So that's on Sunday mornings at 10 o'clock over there. The other thing that you have is just interpersonal relationships. Okay, so there's a ton of growth that happens in your spiritual life here because of the relationships of the people you have here. Okay, so you spend a ton of time, people talk to me, people talk to each other. When you have older people that are further along in the faith, you have younger people talking to them to kind of go, how do I handle this stuff? And you have stuff you don't see all the time, meetings all the time between different people in the church that come up here and meet, where it's like a one-on-one, just to talk about life and how to get advice and stuff like that. That happens in our church all the time, where people are growing with each other through interpersonal relationships. The third thing we see the church was meant to be was a place that ministered to the needs, ministered to those in need. Specifically in the scriptures, you see three areas of this: orphan and widows. Okay, that orphan and widows are being taken care of, the poor and the hungry, and those that have needs within the church. So those in the church that are having specifically financial needs or different things like that, that the church was meant to help support those things and take care of those things. The ways we do that in this church and promote that in this church, one, we have our community food bank. It's a month. Again, it's coming up this month. If you haven't been a part of that, I encourage you. Think about serving sometime in that. It's very easy, but it really gives you a view of our neighborhood and some of the struggles people in our neighborhood have, and also lets you know that we're helping them as a church community, how we're impacting this community that way by providing food. We have make sure no one is left behind. Best way I can describe that is, if you're in need in this church and anyone in leadership becomes aware of that, we try to help you out. Okay? We're going to pair you up with people. We're going to go talk to people. I deal with a lot of this on the side. People come to me. They let me know they have a need or something they're struggling in. They don't want help because no one likes asking for help. And so I have to convince them, can you please just let me help you? And I will go to people in the church. I won't mention who you are, but we'll get money, we'll get finances to help you out, to take care of you, because you're not on your own if you are part of this body. So that happens quite a bit in this church. Some of the other things that happen you might not be aware of. We house Comfort House that meets here once a month on Thursdays and is halfway houses. It's people that are trying to get their lives stable again, that are ex-drug addicts or alcoholics, and they live in group homes throughout Tulsa here, and they hold each other accountable. They do their monthly area meetings here on Thursday where they have about 100 to 150 people in here on Thursday evenings. And they do like group meetings, reminding everybody what the house rules are, walking through issues they have, encouraging each other to stay on the wagon and stay away from the drugs and stay away from alcohol and stuff like that. They meet here on Thursdays. They also do special events here for fundraisers and stuff for the organization, so they meet here. We have an AA group that meets here on Monday and Fridays. I have two different groups that meet here for Alcohol Anonymous. So they meet here for counseling and stuff like that at the church on Mondays and Fridays. We also have a Girl Scouts group that meets here on Thursdays. That just meets here in the church. There's about 10 of them that meet here on Thursdays. We have Tulsa Tech classes, this is a new one. So we have Tulsa Tech. If you go over here to that room by the kitchen, you'll notice there's like a table in there, and there's like a screen in there now, and then there's a bunch of stuff in the kitchen, all says Tulsa Tech. Tulsa Tech came to us this summer. They are doing a program for mentally challenged individuals that can function with jobs and all, and they're training them how to cook. And so Tulsa Tech does not have facilities right now to teach them how to cook and all, so they came to us and asked us if we'd be willing to open our building to them. And so they came, checked it out, said this looks like something they could use. We negotiated with them to kind of go, this is what you need to be paying us to cover our cost, to have you here with air conditioning, all that type of stuff. And so they meet here Monday through Friday from 8 until 2 o'clock every day. And they have, I think, like 8 students right now, and they are teaching them how to get food handler permits, and then they start teaching them how to cook. And then they're cooking food. They started testing out on Mike this week. So since I'm not a foodie and Mike's a foodie, they brought down some of their eggs and stuff they made, and they were like, would you taste this for us? And then Mike was like, well, Mike, you gave them some type of, like, you could add a little bit, and there's too much of this in there and all. And they were like, oh, thank you. And they're all dressed in like their like professional like clothes and all the cooking. So they are here this whole school year. They'll be doing those classes here at Christview. So that's happening. You also have Lifeline Screening Medical Group. And what that is, it's a nonprofit, well, it's a for-profit, but it's for low-income communities. They come in here twice a year, and they do screenings for heart tests and stuff like that for low-income areas for very reduced prices to check people's health and stuff like that. And they come in here twice a year to run that for an entire day on those days. So those are several ways we do this promoting, helping the community, helping those who are in need as a church. Next one is this, is the church is meant to be a place of prayer, okay? So another place, it is meant to be a place of prayer. What you will see is this, outside of this service, we do a lot of praying for each other, okay? It's hard to do it in here because this is more of a formal setting and everybody's in here. But almost anytime you get together in this church in any type of group, you're going to be taking prayer requests of what's happening in people's lives, struggles going on, and we pray for them as a group then, and people take notes, and people are praying for those concerns during the week. And so we do a lot of praying here for each other for needs that are happening. Now, the other way you can become a church of prayer is this, 2 other things. One, you can recognize issues that you're dealing with that are bigger than you, that you need God's intervention on, which is going to lead you to prayer, so you're aware of some of those things. The other thing is you can pursue some things that you can't force to happen, and you can pursue them where you need the hand of God to help you achieve them, okay? Now, we're going to come back to that in a little bit here at the end, and we'll talk about that, so I'm just going to skip through that, and we're going to come back, and you're going to see where that ties in. The last thing we see is this. The church was meant to be a community that exposes people to Jesus. So the last thing we see is this. The church, and what we mean by the church is not just this building, but us as a people. We are the church. We are meant to expose people to Jesus, the gospel message of his life. How we go about this at this church. We do this in a few ways. One, we have our weekly and we have our every other Sunday basketball and workout programs. So as you've heard me say before with our basketball guys, I've probably got 60 to 70 guys on a regular basis come through here in a month to play basketball with me. And Mike and Tom, Thomas is in here. He's in here. James, he's with them. And so several of us have connection to those guys that way. And James Hearn during the week has kids from his school come out and they use the workout room because we actually have like a pretty good sized workout room over there. East Central got new equipment, and since they know James, they called James and said, James, you want our old stuff? So James and Mark went over and got like all this weightlifting equipment. So we actually have like leg press. Not that I ever worked out. I mean, you think I do looking at me, but I don't work out much. I play basketball and cardio stuff. But besides that, we have a very good weightlifting room over there, and so he brings kids over after school and they go weightlift with him, and that's our way of just trying to make connections to people. So if they're basketball workouts, Wednesday night student ministries, we have a ton of kids in there that don't know Jesus. Let me just give you a quick story. Wednesday night I had 13 in the kids area. Of the 13, when I asked them, can you tell me as we were going through, because I start with the basics every year that lead up to who Jesus is. This week we did creation and who God is and the three parts of God. And when I got to the part of, can you tell me who the first human was that was created by God, not any of the 13 had any clue. And then I tried to go like, add, they still had no clue. I was like, Adam, and they're like, Adam. And I was like, yes, okay. Who was the first female created? Eve. They're just throwing out things. I'm like, Eve. Eve? Yeah, her name's Eve. Eve. Oh, okay. So like Adam and Eve. These kids know nothing. They have no background at all in church. They have no understanding of any of that. But that's what we're dealing with on Wednesday nights. As you have kids that, for the first time, are coming to a place where they get to hear about Jesus. The other thing we have is we have our community harvest party, which will be coming up the end of October, which is an all-church thing. But we put that on for our community that we're kind of known for now. And we don't advertise or we get overrun. So we just set the stuff up and people see it and then they come out. That will be coming up in a few weeks where we just reach out to the community. The other thing we do is we do staff school lunches. Not sure if all of you are aware of this. Me, Mike, and Christian, Mondays, we go over to Bovers Elementary. So they invite us to come over and eat with their kids. So we just go into the cafeteria. We eat with the kids and we each pick a table. And I do card tricks. And Mike, I don't know what he does. And Christian talks anime and they call him anime guy and stuff like that. But they've asked us because they just want male role models to come over and ask us if we go eat with them. So we do that Mondays. Tuesdays, we go over to Dolores, which is the school across the street back in that neighborhood, and do the same thing where we eat with 3 grades. And we just go in. We don't tell them we're ministers or anything, but some of the kids there go to church here, so the word gets out. But we don't talk about Jesus or anything, but we're just there to be good male adults that they get to see, and we eat lunch with them and hang out with them. And that's another way as a church we get to make connection to this world and promote Christ in those scenarios. Now, here's the thing. As a church, we do a pretty good job as a church connecting to people that don't know Jesus Christ. Through our basketball program, Wednesday nights, the school stuff and all that, our harvest party, we do a really good job connecting to a number of people. Here's our struggle, okay? And this is the part that we're going to spend a little time on here at the end. Our struggle is this. We have 3 very distinct groups within our ministry right now, okay? Let me explain who they are. First one is this. It's our Sunday crowd, which is you sitting here right now. Group 1 is that. Now, to be honest with you, we can't lie about this. This is what we are. We're older, and we're vastly white. Vast majority of us are white, okay? And we're an older crowd. If you look around, you're going to see, hey, we're an older group of people, and we're almost all white, okay? That is, if you don't think you're old, that's fine. You can walk away from here and think you're not. I got a year older this year too, so I'm getting there as well. That is group number 1. That's who's here right now. Second group, we have our Wednesday kids, okay? Our Wednesday kids are young. We have very little parent connection to them. To be honest with you, most of them don't have much connection to their parents either. And they are an ethnic melting pot. When you come here on Wednesday night, it is just a mix of everything. There is no majority of anything. It's just a mix of everything. And most of them have very little, if any, church background. Okay? So you see some of them around here today because we're going to Charlie's Chicken. So they're here for meal day, which is great because they're here at church. They get to be around us. They get to go have a good meal. They'll have a good time with us today. And it'll be a nice part of their week because they get to spend some time with us. Okay? But that's our Wednesday group. Young, melting pot, very little connection to their parents. They don't have much connection to their parents, and they have very little church background, if any. The third distinct group we have is our basketball guys. Okay? Now, our basketball guys are this. They're mostly young adult males. Okay? Almost 90% of them are black guys. And I would say a decent chunk of them have some church background, but they're not involved in church currently. So they've been to church, or they grew up in church some, went with grandma or something, or with mom. They're not involved, though, in church in any way right now, other than they come play basketball with us here at the church. So we have these three very distinct groups, and they have very little in common with each other. And we have been struggling for a long time, and this is what I struggle with more than anything, is how do you build bridges to get these three groups so they're not just three distinct groups, but they're at least somewhat of going, we're kind of the same group, and we're part of Christview, and we're part of God's church, okay? This is the biggest hurdle we have. Here's the hard part of this. We don't even have examples to follow. I have done this, you guys don't know this. I've spent like a decade trying to find other churches who do ministry like we do in the place that we ministry. I can't find anyone to go to say, hey, how do you do it? What do you do? Reason being, most churches that are still alive in these areas like that we minister in, denominational churches, so they're getting their funding from outside sources or denomination coming in, and that's how they survive. If you aren't aware, if you just look at our street right now, you have the church on this side of the street. Right down here, it's the Baptist church. I just met with their preacher this week. I think they have 15 people left in their church that they minister to there, and they realize it's not going to be lasting long. The other side of the street from them on that side is the Assemblies of God church. They actually just tried to sell their building, so they were I just found this out this week, they were in the middle of selling their building and then it fell through like at the last moment, so now they're back in it. But they have like 30 people at their church, and we're trying to sell their building and stuff like that. So most of the churches around here are just slowly dwindling, because if you're not part of a denomination or denomination's not sending you money, you don't survive. We're surviving at the moment, which is the unique thing we have, okay? But we will not survive forever if we stay the way we are. So here is our next attempt we're going to do. This is a plan that been praying about forever, and I think we're at a point where we might be able to pull this off. So I'm going to explain to you what this is and how you can help with this. Our key is going to be game days. So last year we started to run game days where we did 6 or 7 last year, and that was after church on Sunday. We bought pizza for some of the kids, and we told them on Wednesday night come over for game days, and then we played this game called Escape that I created years ago that the kids all love, and I don't know why, but it always works. And it's kind of like a big game of hide and seek throughout this whole church, except they're trying to get back into the room without getting caught by like Mike. Usually it's Mike, Christian, and Bob or someone like that chasing around with balls in the church. Okay. The other thing we invested this year is during the summer in Christian's office right now. It looks like we're getting ready to go to war, and Christian said something like it looks like it's January 6th again or something. I think that's how you said this week. But he's probably got like 80 plus Nerf guns in your office right now that I've been collecting around the city through Facebook Marketplace this summer. So if I find good deals or people are selling them off, I go meet them in the city here and I buy them. And real quick, Brittany, there's a lot of people in Bartlesville with a lot of cheap Nerf guns, but I don't want to drive that far, so I've been tempted sometimes to be like, Brittany, would you go over and buy these guns from these people and I'll pay you someday? But anyways, we have this big arsenal because we're going to do Nerf gun wars today as part of that as well, where we'll do them in here with Nerf wars. Here's my thoughts. This is what we're going to try to do. I've been playing basketball with these guys now for about 5 to 6 years. I've got a handful of them that I would consider are good guys. Don't know if they're Christian guys, or I know they're not living out Christian life and stuff like that and out like participating in a church. But they come play basketball and they're decent guys who are doing well in life where they are holding down jobs. I've got one guy, his name is Rashad. Interesting, he has full custody of both of his kids and he takes care of both of them. He goes for nursing school and he works full time as well and comes plays basketball, and he's one of my core guys that started with me 6 years ago. And you're going, might not be a Christian guy, but you're a good guy, okay? So I have a handful of them that next Sunday at 1:45 before we play basketball, there's going to be some of our kids that are in here, some of our young adults, so like some of our guys in the back that I'm talking to, and these guys, I've invited them to come to a planning meeting for mentoring. And so I'm going to have them here next week at 1:45, and I'm going to present to them what we'd like them to do is to mentor these young kids and just be around them. And And on game days, I'm going to ask them to come to church on those days, to be here when we ask all of our Wednesday kids to come to church on those days. And then right after church, we all go over, we have pizza, and then they're there to help us play games, and they start making connections with these kids from the neighborhood. Let me tell you why I think this works and why these guys I've taught from basketball are excited for this. Almost all of them grew up in East Tulsa, and they got out of it once they started to work and kind of make their own lives. So some of them live in Bixby, Broken Arrow, different areas of the city here. But this is where they grew up, and all of them grew up without dads, and all of them grew up in this area with the same broken homes all these kids are growing up in. And so they give them a opportunity to kind of be a dad figure in these kids' lives that's a good role model. Every one of them's like, yeah, I'll do that. Yeah, let me do that. We're going to use that to get them to come to church. Do they have to come to church, go to game day? No, I can tell them to come to game day and just show up at that time, but no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to tell them to come to church so that they get some exposure here of what we do, and then go over there and get exposure to you. Okay? And so we're going to be asking our young adults, and we're going to be asking our basketball guys that are the good ones. And here's the thing. Of my 60 to 70, I have 8 or 9 I'm inviting. And I've told them I'm only inviting you, don't ask the other guys, because I don't want those guys here because they're not good role models for our kids. You 8 or 9 are, along with some of our young adults. And so on those Sundays, here's what I'm asking from you. The game day Sundays, which the dates, Chuck, are they up there? If you go, okay. Dates there, and they're on here. Those are Sundays we need to be here. If you're in town, that's on a sleeping day, that's on a day where you're like, I don't feel like going to church today, I'll just skip out today. That's fine, but on those days, I need you here. Why? Because when they come here, I want them exposed to you. Okay? They know me. I want them exposed to you. And I want them to see the church. And I want them to get to know the church. Does that make sense? So on those days, I need you here. And here's what I also need you to understand. On those Sundays, those days have nothing to do with you at all. Because we could be having, last year on game days, at the end of the year, we were having, I think the last one we had 44 kids on that last game day last year. On these game days, I'm anticipating we could have 40 kids and another 10 to 12 young adults here in worship with us. None of them knowing church culture, anything to do with church, never been in church. Okay? And the kids, most of them can't sit still. So when you come here, I don't care what they're doing, you're not here for you that day. You're here for them. Does that make sense? That's why I'm asking of you. Is those days don't exist for you. Those are just for us to love on them and show them God's people and put them around us. Okay? I also need you praying for this. So as I went back to, we have to do some things where you know you can't achieve it and you need God's hand on it. That's what this is this is something we need God to help us, because for the future of the church, we need to reach the next generation. And the next generation of this community doesn't look like us, and they're not our age, and they didn't grow up in the environments most of us grew up in. Some of us can relate, but most of us cannot. But that doesn't matter, because we are the people of God. And so love is love. We can show them the Christ love, and they will see that as Christ's love in us. Okay? Love is love. Don't connect that to the society's terminology of that. So I know that can have bad things. Christ's love is Christ's love. It sticks out. It's different. Okay? So with that said, that's what we're looking at doing. The other option I'm giving them is some of those guys, if they want to commit more, I'm going to present to them the CCC lunch days. And to come back on those days when the kids, because you'll look around today, we have a bunch of kids here today. So I had Aiden and Braden, who are just kids that live down the road, that got here at 8:30 this morning because they know we're going to lunch today. They've never been in church before, so they were here during worship time, hopping over the seats, and then looking at all the sound stuff we do, and then wondering what we do on Sundays. And then they went to Sunday school, and I don't know if they drove mic nuts or not. And then I sat them back here with Brittany just to stay under control a little bit while we sang 2 songs. And they have no idea what church is, but they're here this morning because they want to go eat with us. Okay? That's going to be the other opportunity we offer those guys, is if you want to come on those days and take those kids to lunch, you can take those kids to lunch, and you can still continue to be a role model. Okay? And as we do that, hopefully God works on all these people. Okay? That is what we're going to attempt this year. Could it burn to the ground and not work at all? Absolutely. Okay? Could it go great and be fantastic and we go, holy, why didn't we think of this before? Absolutely. Could it be somewhere in the middle? Absolutely. I have no clue. And And you know what? It doesn't really matter what I think. It doesn't matter what my opinions are. We pray about it and we hope this works out for the glory of the kingdom of God. Okay? So specifically, real quick, here's the other thing. On those Sundays, don't be weird and feel like you have to go greet everybody. Just be your normal selves, act your normal selves. I'm going to handpick some people, so I have like Paul's in here now. Paul Thomas, I'm going to have. Paul, I'll be talking to you soon. Paul, because Paul plays basketball with us every Sunday with most of these guys are going to be asking in, they will know his face the minute they walk in. So I'm going to use Paul to be a guy that if they bring their kids with them, to like show them where to take their kids and stuff, because they already know Paul. So you don't need to do all that. We'll have some people know. James knows them all. Mike knows them all. Gideon knows them all. And we'll use faces they already know that they're familiar with to help with some of that. Otherwise, if they're around you, say hi. Just be normal. No big deal. People are people. Okay? Everybody wants to be treated kindly, and they notice that. So that's what I'm asking you to pray for. That's going to be the big difference this year, is on those dates, be at church. And come knowing it has nothing to do with you. I'm going to be talking to Ryan as well. The music we select that day and all. Just make it a little bit more that they're going to connect to that. It's not the deep spiritual stuff that they don't even understand what the words mean. So you're going to have to pick things that they understand the wording of it at least and can understand what it's saying rather than having the coded meanings that Christians all know. Okay? So all that stuff's going to have to be geared towards them to go, hey, we want you to understand what worship is like and connect to God. My sermons those days, when I meet with them next week, I'm going to ask what are some issues or things that you would like to hear on, get some feedback from them, and if I get some decent stuff from them, I'll probably preach on those 6 Sundays and run like a series that's separated to those 6 weeks that they when they come in, there's some cohesion to those messages. Okay? So know all that. Does that make sense? Give me a thumbs up if you all understand that. Okay, that's what's happening this year. Before we close, let me just say this. We have a lot of moving parts of this church. Okay? We have a lot of barriers that are at times that seem overwhelming to you. But I know we serve a God that's a lot bigger than any of them. And so no matter what happens, we keep moving forward. We keep trying to do the ministry and the work that God has put before us. So let me encourage you with 2 different scriptures here as we close. 1 Corinthians 12:27, it says this: all of you together are Christ's body, and each of you is a part of it. Real quick, the reason I want you to understand that, I'm the minister, but you're all equal partners with me in this church. Okay? Don't act like it's my job to win society and it's my job to be a witness of Christ and you just are normal people who get to go do what you do. You are as much of this church as I am. Every one of us are ministers in this church and we are part of this body. We play a key role in this body. And so never sell yourself short just going, no, I'm just someone that goes and visits. If this is your home church, you're part of this body and you're part of this ministry. Take that seriously and understand that. The second thing is this, 2 Corinthians 15:58. I have to remind myself of this one a lot. Always work enthusiastically for the Lord, for you know that nothing you do for the Lord is ever useless. The reason I love that scripture is this. You can do a lot of things that look like they flamed out and they failed and they burnt to the ground and they were complete failures, and you have to let yourself know that's okay, because if you were doing it with the intent to glorify God, God remembers it and it was never useless in his eyes and in his kingdom. You never know what seeds you plant, you never know what things you did in people's lives, and you never get to see with your physical eyes until someday you're in heaven and you get to see the full story of how all this stuff plays out. Okay? So that's one thing I always take encouragement from, is we keep working, we keep doing what we've been called by God to do, we keep pursuing the things we see in the scriptures that the church is supposed to be, knowing that whatever we do, it's never useless if we're doing it for the kingdom of God. Would you pray with me? Heavenly Father,